Nagyon köszönöm. Good morning, everyone. As discussed, we would speak in English today. I'm very, very happy to be here, and thanks a lot for the opportunity. I have to say this is also an unusual setup personally for me. I have to say in the last 6 months I get kind of used to the Zoom conferences and discussion. Never ever did I have the opportunity to present in a conference of this scale fully remotely. So bear with me for this. Hope it will be still fun as much as the COVID allows. So as you heard, we wanted to bring you a bit of facts and research and what our expectations are in this, what we call the new normal in the COVID times. As McKinsey, we do look at many statistics, but we also do our own research, and that's what I would like to share with you today. 2 years ago, we looked into what digitization could mean in Central Eastern Europe across the region, and how far are we from these more advanced countries that you heard in the intro. Now, what we realized is that we can forecast many things, but of course, no one from us expected such pandemic, no one expected COVID to happen. So basically this year, earlier, we said that, okay, it might make sense to have a look and see how things are changing. All of us believe that digitization is accelerated due to COVID. That's great, but what does it practically mean? So we did the research across all the Central European countries and looked at the numbers. And actually some of the numbers were quite shocking to me personally. So first of all, the digital adoption. To what extent do people use digital? It went up massively by 15 percentage points, or 1/4 from the baseline. And you can say that 75% of the users do use digital services. You could also ask what do the rest of the 25 do. That's a separate discussion, but still it's a massive change. What we have seen is that if you look at Central Europe overall, this means approximately 12 million new users. 12 million new users. I mean, just reflect about that number. It's more than Hungary total. It's more than Slovakia, Croatia, and Slovenia combined, total population. 12 million new online service users just in this period. This is massive. This is massive. So the extent of change that COVID is bringing, I guess we have all seen the who's the best CDO type of meme on the internet, right? COVID did achieve a lot that companies, that institutions, public sector was not achieved before. And this will continue. The second point that I would like to mention here is who are these users and what's happening? What we're seeing is that the sacred cows are gone. There's no more a discussion that we cannot reach people in rural areas. There's no more a discussion that elderly cannot be reached digitally and they don't buy, they don't consume. No, all of this is turning around, and actually we have seen one of the biggest increase in the 65+ population across the whole region, and actually much bigger in our region than overall in Europe. So by and large, this change that is happening is massive, and user behaviors, customer behaviors are changing. I think you will see more details on that later during the day, as I understood, but this is, I think, a takeaway number one to keep in mind. Now, double-clicking a little bit on where is this happening, and by the way, for all these statistics reports, you will find the report on our website, etc. Look into the details. But basically what we did, we looked across 10 sectors, and looked into these 10 sectors. What you see on the chart in gray color or white color, whatever it is, what you see is who used the services of that sector digitally pre-COVID. Then you add on top of it the blue lines, which shows that who used this sector post-COVID. And then we rank them. Now, there are a number of interesting conclusions one can take from this. I personally work a lot in financial services, so I'm very happy for my banking clients, seeing that they lead the pack, actually, across all industries. So it seems that people do need banking and do want to see how much money they have, and they do check it digital. It could be online, it could be mobile, etc. I don't feel that good for my insurance clients, because there you see that they are not that much leading, and they have a lot of ground to cover. Now, of course, travel you see at the end of the line, not because they are not available digital, it's just obvious fact of people traveled less. But also we see a big increase that I would like to point out in public sector, which I think is a super positive thing, that public sector in our region also started to react, and more services are becoming available online. But again, whichever industry you are most exposed to, I think you can go through and you will see pretty much the same growth, like 1.5, 2 times growth in digital interactions. Again, massive opportunity from the customer perspective. Now, how do you translate it into actual interactions, actual business, actual sales? That's a different story. I have to say, I think all of us are trying to explore that. I personally, I'm learning the new ways in my job, where I have clients all across the region, and pre-COVID, I used to be sitting on the plane and having in-person interactions, which I don't have anymore. So I had to learn how to build those relationships, how to manage those relationships in this new norm. This is, I think, that is coming for each of us and to be learned in each of the industries. Now, where does it take us? As you heard in the intro, there is an opportunity. We believe there's an opportunity. We have been doing great, but not as great as the full potential shows. So if we start with the 2019 number, 92 billion. 92 billion in euros was our business as usual or base case scenario forecast for digital contribution to the GDP. The good news is that the region over-delivered. When we looked at the actual statistics, it was 94 billion. So Central Europe indeed did step on the gas to contribute digitally. By the way, another interesting fact that we have seen is that this year, you mentioned COVID in the beginning. How did COVID contribute? In the first 5 months where we had statistics, we saw that approximately 80% of the growth was already achieved that last year took a full year. So definitely there's an acceleration. But still with this acceleration, we were at 94 billion euros GDP, and our aspirational scenario for this year would have been around 120. What does the aspirational scenario mean? Aspirational scenario means that we are closing a bit of the digital gap to the Western European countries and getting a bit closer to the digital leaders. If we as Central Europe were able to get on this aspirational path, that would mean that we could add like cumulatively 200 billion euros of extra GDP growth. I mean, I don't want to even translate it or calibrate how huge this number is. It's just enormous. Again, emphasizes how big this opportunity is. And just for all of you to put this in context, so this speed of growth still doesn't close the gap that we have between our countries and the digital leader countries. So digital leader countries, if you look at Denmark, other Nordic countries, etc. So the opportunity ahead, whatever you think, triple it, quadruple it, it's just enormous. And very curious to see where we will get in a few years. Now, of course, you could ask like, okay, then what to do? Of course, we developed a number of recommendations on the broad setting. I think the important part is that it's not only one sector, it's not only businesses, it's equally the public sector who needs to act. And we had a recommendation, which I really hope that will go through, to establish a digital council across Central Europe to accelerate adoption of digital services, create the digital infrastructure for digital sales, for digital servicing across countries in our regions. So that is number one thing that the public sector should do. Then there's a lot of discussion around creating the digital infrastructure for all type of companies. I'm pretty sure that you experience day-to-day many difficulties that due to administrative or legal burdens, you cannot do everything that you would ideally want to do in your businesses. So there's a lot that the public sector can do here. And then a super important point that I want to pose on for a second is digital talent. What we have seen, and all of us, or at least I personally, lived in the belief that Central Eastern Europe, and especially in Hungary, we have amazing talent, especially in technical disciplines, and this is the place for everyone to come for talent. Now, the numbers actually show that this advantage is fading away, or in certain areas is already gone. Right? It's very, very scary thing to see in various levels of educations, middle school, higher education, etc., that our gap in digital in terms of talent is growing towards Western Europe, not to mention again the leading countries. So one super important call for action, where I think it starts with public sector, but equally businesses and all of us and individuals have the responsibilities to focus on digital talent and build up this talent, how you can link it to the everyday job, to sales, etc. I'm sure there are tons of opportunities around talent. And if we are talking about talent, of course, this comes together with the new way of working. Pre-COVID, we were talking about agile, and everyone was agilizing and creating this new way of working. Those who succeeded are very happy because it contributed a lot that they are able to switch as smooth as possible to the remote way of working. I think now the new trend is the work from home, the remote way of working, with all the questions on how to manage burnouts and how to manage the balance between private life and work. So that is a big trend that we are seeing, where again, all these three stakeholders, companies, public sector individuals, have a huge, huge responsibility. Then talking a little bit about the business side, I think we have seen a lot of digitization in all of these industries that I mentioned. Of course, one can debate to what extent they were successful. But nevertheless, we see that there's a tons of opportunity ahead. So especially in the sales area, my kind request to you is this: push this, accelerate this, encourage your clients, your own companies to move ahead and digitize a lot. And I think of two horizons. Number one is how you digitize the existing, how you digitize what we call the core. But then there is a next horizon, and we see a lot more thinking on this, which is, the question is not how you digitize your core. The question is, how do you leapfrog? How do you reinvent what you are doing using digital? Totally new. I think on this one, we are starting to see some good initial traction in our region, but we are by far not there. And we are by far not there as Central Europe, and I didn't talk about the Americas. Right? If you look at the really big picture, we looked at the market cap of the biggest companies on the globe, ranked them in the top 20 countries. There is one single company from Europe, SAP, somewhere around 17, one. That is the level of digital reinvention that we are doing in Europe overall. So I think that shows us that there's a tons of opportunity to get to the level that Asia does, that North America does, and I would encourage everyone to think a bit outside the box. So those are the findings of the report, really in a nutshell, that I wanted to share. There's a lot more behind, so if you are interested, go to our website, book some good reading time to read through all the 68 pages of the report. A lot of interesting statistics and findings in there. And of course, happy to get any questions offline later. You see my availabilities, happy to. I think my most important takeaway for you, that at least I personally took away from this research, that it's a supply-driven thing. So don't think about the constraints, don't think about what's not possible, what is technically difficult. If you make it happen, if the supply is available, then consumers have shown that they have the interest and they will change. Thank you very much.